Welcome to Leon's Chainsaw Parts and Repair. This is my first customer saw video. This is a Homelite XL-101 sent to me by a very kind gentleman by the name of Kirk. Had it for decades, used it in the Sierra Nevadas cutting firewood, and it ended up kind of shoved in a corner and needed some attention. So he sent it this way. After a few false starts, finally determined that it had seized because of a broken crankshaft needle bearing on the connecting rod. I don't see a lot of those break, but let me tell you, telltale signs. If you have a seizure on your engine, and when you get it apart, you've got a real deep groove. It's isolated to just one area, and a bunch of pock marks on the top of your piston. Look really closely at that needle bearing. It's not worth overlooking, let me assure you of that. I can tell you that from somebody who's made that mistake. So, kind of show you what we ended up with. Here's the old piston. You can see that really deep groove that I was talking about. It actually cut through part of the ring and it sealed the ring groove up. And even through the carbon, you can see some of the pock marks up there from the pieces bouncing around. Cylinder, you can't see a whole lot, it's too dark, but it's too rough to reuse once that happens. It's all over. Crankshaft, see how the journal, very dull. The rest of the crankshaft's machine surfaces are very shiny. That dull meant that that had worn metal, and it was not worth attempting to reuse. Just not worth destroying new parts. So a little about the XL-101. If you're not super familiar with it, it would have been introduced somewhere in about 65 or 66. Story goes that these were meant to replace the XL-12 and the Super XL, but they never caught on in the States because the early models had a glued oil reservoir. Oil reservoir is right back here, and it wasn't serviceable. And what people found out real quickly is if the bar tip pinched and you pulled real hard on the handle trying to get it unpinched, it would break the epoxy in here, leak oil, and there was nothing you could do about it. Homelite corrected that within about a year, but by then the US market had kind of lost their taste for it. The refined version of these ended up being the XL-123 here in the States, and then the Canadians had the XL-76 and the Super XL-130. Both are all are very good saws, but again, that reputation kind of stuck here. So anyway, back to this saw. When I got it, we had the piston cylinder issue. We had a broken handle bracket. You can see there's a new bracket there. The old one, the rubber mounts had worn out, and so the screws blew that apart. Fairly common thing to look for on these. It also had the original muffler, and that little muffler, to call it a muffler is kind of a joke. All it is a stack, and those are not legal on any public lands anymore. You've got to have a spark arrestor. So Kirk had asked me to put on a proper muffler that does have a spark arrestor in it, has the baffle, and that's a fairly easy upgrade to still come by. These have a 3-shoe clutch. This drum had a 404 pitch sprocket on it, which don't really think was necessarily what he wanted, so we swapped that to a 3/8. Common thing to look for if you're rebuilding one of these saws. The XL-101 does not have an automatic oiler. There's a lot of crankshafts out on eBay that describe themselves as an XL-101 crank, and they're not. They're about that much longer, about half an inch longer, because they're meant to accommodate an automatic oil pump back there. You might be able to put some spacer washers and all of that in there, but just be careful what you're buying and make sure you're getting what it is you expect. So anyway, this guy is running good, as you can see. Had a little fine-tuning to do. It's real easy. These saws had a molded fuel line. Most of those have gone completely rotten by now and aren't worth using, even if you can find a NOS one. Far and away the easiest way to go put a grommet in down here, put a grommet in up here, and just run a regular fuel hose. You'll be much happier. This Tygon hose is available at almost any good auto parts store. Should be very little cost per foot. NOS air filters. See all that staining? The old grommets like to melt even when they're brand new in the box, like this one was. A new choke rod grommet will slip right in there, and it fits very tightly on the shaft there. Will seal up just perfectly. No problems. So anyway, Kirk, I think you're going to be very happy with this saw. I'm going to get the fuel drain out of it and let it air out a little bit so the post office doesn't give me hell, and hopefully get it sent your way real soon.